We eagerly waited for passengers at the airport's baggage area. My brother-in-law Bob, along with his 2 daughters, 9-year-old Danica and 7-year-old Louise, joined my son David, 12, and my daughter Sheila, 9. The kids proudly held up a big sign that read, "Welcome home, mommies." 2 weeks ago, my wife Mandy and her sister Helen took a vacation to the beaches of Belize, a perfect escape from the chilly Minnesota winters, especially in January. Finally, the passengers from the plane started emerging at the door, and the kids couldn't contain their excitement, bursting into cheers at the sight of their mothers. Both women looked stunning with their beautiful tans and smiles. Mandy warmly greeted David and Sheila, giving them tight hugs and kisses. Then she turned to me, rewarding me with a passionate kiss. I embraced her and didn't want to let go. "I really missed you, honey. Just wait until the evening," she whispered in my ear. "I'll show you how much I missed you." That night, she certainly lived up to her promise. After 15 years of marriage, she knows me well, especially my appreciation for tan lines. After putting the kids to bed, we headed straight to the bedroom. "Honey, get into bed and be ready for me when I come out of the bathroom." In no time, I found myself waiting in bed. A few minutes later, Mandy emerged from the bathroom, wearing a bikini. Mandy's most attractive feature has always been her beautiful face, perfect for smiles. However, she's her own harshest critic, feeling she's too short or too thin. Both pregnancies had the side effect of making my chest larger and fuller. The thong bikini beautifully highlighted her curves, but the best was yet to come. Mandy stood at the foot of the bed, showcasing her golden tan from the beach. Slowly, she pulled down her thong, revealing faint tan lines where the straps were. The private area remained the same milky white as before. Excitement surged as she unbuttoned her bikini top, letting it hang over her chest. Finally, the bikini fell to the floor, revealing her cute little chest. I immediately crawled to the foot of the bed, grabbing her waist, and pulled her towards me, showering her with kisses and caresses. She responded eagerly, reaching her peak in just a few minutes. Several times, I simply enjoyed the musky scent of her body. She expressed how much she had missed me and shared that she found it sweet. She mentioned her gladness at being back home. We spent a good part of the night reconnecting. A few days later, during Mandy's bathtub cleaning, she playfully mentioned having been in the hallway enjoying the beautiful view. She giggled and approached me, teasingly pressing her body against mine. She explained that this was her way of teasing. Normally, I would press my hips down to increase contact, but a few seconds earlier, a feeling of fear overcame me. I didn't know why, but something was definitely wrong with the picture in front of me. However, I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Tired of my lack of response to her teasing, Mandy expressed dissatisfaction, mentioning that, like all men, I only used words and no actions. She made a final thrust of her hips, and then turned to grab the gloves from the sink, stating that she better finish the bath. It was then that I realized a small detail had struck my subconscious. I turned pale, left, and muttered that I was going to the garage, not caring if Mandy heard me. In the garage, I sat on a workbench, lost in my thoughts, having a bad feeling about what I had just discovered. I wondered if Mandy had cheated on me while she was in Belize. I was sure of one thing. If Mandy tried even a little, finding a willing man wouldn't be a problem for her. And what I saw made sense only if she tried something with her sister while on vacation. What will I do if I find out she cheated on me? The answer was clear. I'll leave her without a second thought, even though it will hurt, especially for our 2 children. Why did she do this to me? To us? Am I such a bad husband? These questions circled in my head for the rest of the evening. Despite strongly feeling she cheated, I had no evidence. How can I be sure? The deception, if it happened, occurred 3,000 miles away in another country. I can't confront her. She'll deny it. Can I stand up to her sister? I played with this idea, but the 2 sisters were equally stubborn. Throughout my life, I knew sisters. If one cheated, the other did too. I had to talk to Bob about my suspicions. Later on, I heard Mandy calling me, and I returned home. "What kept you in the garage for over 2 hours?" Mandy inquired. "Just doing a bit of cleaning," I replied casually. Then a thought struck me. I didn't want to share a bed with her. Anyway, I've caught a cold that hit me this morning. I think I'll sleep on the couch for a few days. Mandy didn't seem pleased. "All right, I'll make you some herbal tea before bed. Chamomile should help, she suggested. After Mandy went to bed, I found myself alone with my thoughts, jumping from one idea to another. Why did she do this? What should I do? Should I talk to Bob to find out if Helen cheated? At some point, I realized there was a foolproof way to find out if Mandy was cheating. She had developed a habit of staying in touch with all her friends and acquaintances. Mandy had around 600 or 700 friends on Facebook, and even more in her Yahoo address book. If she contacted someone in Belize, I'm sure they exchanged information via email to stay in touch. However, I wasn't sure if she would use her current email account since we knew each other's passwords. I fell asleep, and a plan began to form the next day. Exhausted and struggling to concentrate at work, I scheduled an appointment with a divorce lawyer on Friday. Then I called Bob, asking him to meet me for lunch. Surprised, he agreed, and I shared my discovery. Initially, he laughed, but I soon convinced him it was serious. He would investigate if Helen cheated on him. Pretending a bad flu, I left the office early and returned home at 3 p.m. I promptly installed keyboard tracking software on our home computer. It took a week before I discovered the truth. Mandy logged into another email account as Beach Dreams 1975, using our children's names and ages as the password. Just days after returning from Belize, she was in daily contact with Brad. The emails were explicit for both Mandy and Helen. Helen was involved with a guy named Steve. I forwarded all the emails and erased any traces of my surveillance. Then, I sent Bob the emails from my account. I learned they had been intimate almost from the first day in Belize, and even planned to meet again in Chicago next month. The girls would pretend to shop, while the two friends would pretend to watch the Chicago Blackhawks. A quick check of Mandy and Helen's Facebook pages revealed recent friends, Brad Simmons and Steve Reiner, both from Illinois, and both married. I had them in my hands. I had a challenging task ahead. Bob denied that Helen and Mandy were cheating, keeping my suspicions a secret. He never truly believed his wife would cheat on him, a sentiment I understood. Despite Mandy's loving behavior towards me and the children, it was hard to believe she would end the marriage. She seemed so caring and loving that I sometimes doubted myself. It helped. Needing to resume regular closeness, I called Bob at work. I greeted him as Jack and asked if he could log into his personal email account from work. He confirmed and inquired if I had sent him something. I told him to read all the letters and call me back. After waiting for half an hour, Bob exclaimed over the phone, expressing his shock and anger. I calmed him down, assuring him that I had a plan and needed his help. We couldn't let them know what we knew, and I shared my desire to hurt Mandy. Bob agreed to the plan and revealed his eagerness for revenge. I instructed him to call home, leave a message saying he would be working late, and meet me in a pub in the Old Town that evening. At our first strategy meeting, I suggested to Bob that embarrassment could be a powerful tool against our wives. Bob, initially silent, eventually agreed. I mentioned that Tom, our father-in-law, was particularly fond of his two daughters, and Bob nodded in agreement. I revealed that Tom had a strong aversion to cheating wives, explaining that his ex-wife, the mother of Mandy and Helen, had cheated on him throughout their marriage. Bob, with a sly smile, added that Tom hated cheating wives more than anything else. We decided to use this information to embarrass Mandy and Helen in front of their loved ones. I outlined my plan, explaining that we had only 2 weeks to act like caring husbands and advising Bob to follow my lead. I suggested he pretend to catch a cold, work late into the night, and be too sick or tired for bedroom activities, keeping closeness to once a week for appearances. That evening, I returned very late, pretending to have a terrible headache. Despite thinking about the revenge plan for a while, I soon fell asleep, aware of the impending betrayal. When Mandy mentioned a shopping trip to Chicago with Helen, I enthusiastically supported the idea. To show love and support, I even booked a hotel room using our joint credit card, reserved for Mr. and Miss Johnston, double occupancy, assuming Helen and Mandy would share. Bob offered to pay for the room, which was reserved for Mr. and Mr. Roche, also double occupancy. Both Bob and I arranged everything so that each woman thought we were renting one room, unaware that their lovers would be there. The girls planned to take Friday off, fly to Chicago in the morning, and return on a late flight from Chicago on Sunday. The following week, I spoke with Tom Raines, Mandy's father, sharing my plan for a surprise family reunion in Chicago with the kids. Since it was just 2 weeks after our 15th wedding anniversary, Tom thought it was a great idea. I asked Tom to book 3 rooms, thinking it would be a big surprise. Bob and I were outraged by our wives' behavior. On the morning we dropped them off at the airport, they acted like giddy schoolgirls on their way to their first date, laughing at nothing and everything, filled with nervous energy. At the security gate, we kissed them on the cheek, and they didn't notice that neither Bob nor I said, "I love you." Bob drove us back to town, and I quickly called the private detective I hired. I inquired if everything was in place for their stay in Chicago. The next morning, we all met at the airport. During the flight, Tom switched seats with my son David and sat next to me. Sensing something amiss, he asked what the problem was, noting that Bob and I looked like we were heading to a funeral. I apologized for keeping him in the dark and revealed the bad news about our wives cheating on him. I explained that a private investigator was collecting evidence for a divorce, and we would file it as soon as we caught them with their lovers. Tom expressed sorrow, putting his hand on my shoulder in a fatherly way. He mentioned how much it hurt, and wished the few years they lived with him were enough to guide them. Tom began to cry, saying he didn't know he could suffer so much again. Having come to his senses, he stood up and returned to his place. Alan White greeted us at the Chicago airport and handed 2 envelopes, one for Bob and one for me. Inside were incriminating photos and a DVD of the previous night's events. He informed us that the process server would contact us soon, and his operative was monitoring the bedrooms. His assistant would notify us of the most compromising moment to confront the lovers. Simmons and Reiner's wives would receive similar packages by midday. We asked Tom and Alan to look after the children for a while, as we needed to assess the situation. My heart sank, seeing Mandy in various explicit positions, including a troubling photo with 2 mans. It seemed they had unprotected closeness, so Bob and I would need to get tested for STDs in Minneapolis. Alan called his assistant to check if the hotel was clear as the lovers were out for lunch. Tom ordered 3 numbers, and we requested an additional key card for rooms 201 and 203, registered in our names. Both key cards were issued after the clerk checked our IDs. We informed the receptionist that our children had planned a surprise to avoid alerting our wives. We all went up to the 3rd floor where our rooms were located. After an hour of waiting, Alan called, reporting that the lovers had returned from lunch and switched partners. Mandy was with Reiner, and Helen was with Simmons. Alan informed me that he was in the lobby, and the process server had just shown up. I turned off the phone and cheerfully told the children that it was time to go. "Remember what I told you, Sheila. And you too, David. Grandpa and I will enter the room first, and when I give you the signal, you shout, 'Surprise, Mom!' Understood?" "No problem, Dad," said David. "And under no circumstances do you enter the room until I tell you to?" "Yes, that's right. We understand everything, Dad. Go." We walked up the stairs and stopped in front of room 201. I inserted the key and quietly opened the door. Tom and I went inside, the 2 children behind us. However, they didn't wait. As soon as the door opened, they shouted, "Surprise, Mom! We are here!" Caught off guard, Mandy had been with Reiner. Our appearance was indeed a surprise. Reiner hurriedly dressed and left the room. At least he reacted quickly. Mandy jumped out of bed, trying to gather herself. "No, no, this can't be true. No, what are you doing here?" she exclaimed. "Hey, Mommy's undressed," squeaked Sheila, squeezing herself between Tom and me. I snapped my finger, and the process server entered the room. "Mandy Johnston?" he asked the only undressed woman. "This is my mother," Sheila said, trying to be helpful. The process server handed her an envelope. "You've been served," he said, and took a photo of Mandy holding the envelope, attempting to hide her chest. He left. I urged the children to leave their mother while she got dressed. We exited the room, leaving Mandy crying on the floor, fully aware of the contents of the envelope. Bob and his children were in the hallway. I informed Bob that the situation with Helen had not gone well. Simmons had proven to be an aggressive type. When interrupted during his indiscretions, he reacted angrily. Tom got punched in the face. Without hesitation, Bob expressed his disappointment, punching Simmons immediately. Helen, in a commendable act, defended her father by scratching Simmons' face. I entered the room, removed Simmons, and tossed him into the bathroom away from the kids' view, along with his clothes. "Get dressed and get out of here, goat," I ordered. Tom, Bob, and the children left the room without any shame. Helen, covered only with a blanket, followed them. Her father instructed her sternly, "Go back to the room and get dressed." She complied like a little girl, walking back into the bedroom. The process server, who had fled during the argument, reappeared in the doorway. "Ellen DeRoche." "Yes," she responded. He handed her the envelope. "You're served." We all returned upstairs. The initial plan was to spend the night and talk to our wives one last time, but I wasn't in the mood to be in the same room with Mandy. I grabbed our luggage and informed the kids that we were going home. Tom expressed his desire to stay. He had a lot to tell his daughters. Bob and his children returned with us to Minneapolis 4 months later. Despite Mandy's numerous pleas for forgiveness, a judge reviewed our case and granted an uncontested divorce. The house was mine because I inherited it from my parents before I met Mandy. I also received primary custody of the children, but I did not ask. Tom ensured their well-being. Our assets were evenly divided, and Tom gave me a generous Christmas gift the following year to help me financially. He clarified that the money came from Mandy's future inheritance. Bob's divorce unfolded similarly, but their house was shared property. However, shortly after the divorce, Bob and Helen resumed dating, and I'm quite certain they'll end up back together. It's a shame. As for Mandy and me, there's no way I'll ever take her back. I somewhat believed her apologies and think she still loves me. My issue is that her betrayal completely crushed my love for her, leaving it in the dust of her betrayal on the beaches of Belize. I can't love her anymore, even for the sake of the kids. We're very polite to each other, but that's the extent of it. One day, while waiting for the children to join her, Mandy expressed curiosity about how I knew about the situation in Belize. I responded, attributing it to my love for tan lines. She seemed puzzled, stating that she was always in a bikini and we never visited a beach. I prompted her to think about her routine when cleaning the bathroom with various chemicals. She explained that she gathered everything she needed, put on plastic gloves, and rolled up her sleeves. I pointed out that she forgot one thing she always did first, taking off her rings, including her engagement and wedding rings, leaving no tan line on her finger. I've always believed that life can throw unexpected surprises your way. Sometimes they're good, and sometimes they leave a lasting impact. This is the story of one such surprise, a night that started well but ended in a way I never imagined. I'd been dating Jenna for a few months. We met at a friend's party and there was an instant connection. Jenna had this contagious laugh and a way of making everyone feel special. We had our differences, but they added spice to our relationship. Instead of causing problems, one evening we decided to go on a date. We began with dinner at La Bella, a cozy Italian restaurant downtown. The atmosphere was perfect, the food delicious, and the conversation flowed easily. As the night went on, Jenna suggested we go to Murphy's Dive, a local bar where our friends and co-workers often hung out. I thought it was a great idea. What better way to end the evening than with good company and a few drinks? Murphy's was lively when we arrived, with familiar conversations, laughter, and clinking glasses. We mingled, chatted with friends, and everything seemed perfect. A couple of hours later, I excused myself to use the restroom. As I entered, I noticed familiar shoes under a stall. I paused, trying to place them, when I heard a voice that sent chills down my spine. It was unmistakably one of my co-workers saying, "Do that thing." My heart raced as I pieced together the puzzle. Those were Jenna's shoes. A whirlwind of emotions hit me: anger, betrayal, shock. Without a second thought, I headed straight to the bar, asked the bartender to split our check, paid for my drinks, and left Murphy's without waiting for Jenna. I drove around aimlessly, trying to process what had happened. I ended up at a 24-hour diner, ordering a black coffee and staring into it, the bitter taste matching my mood. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I crashed at my buddy Mike's place. He's the kind of friend who doesn't ask questions when you show up. He just handed me a beer, and we played video games until dawn the next day. My phone was blowing up. Jenna had texted a dozen times, and there were a few missed calls. She apologized, said it was a mistake, that she was drunk, but honestly, it all sounded like noise to me. I took a few days off work, unable to face my coworker or the office gossip that was sure to follow. Mike and I hung out, binge-watched shows, and ordered way too much takeout. It was a good distraction. A week later, I finally met up with Jenna. We sat in a park, and she cried a lot. She said it meant nothing, that she regretted it instantly. I just felt numb. I told her I needed space to think. Part of me thinks maybe it was just a one-time mistake, but another part wonders if I can ever trust her again. What would you do?
I messed up big time. I wrote a post in subreddit about wanting an open relationship, and my husband found out, leading to a huge fight with hurtful words. Upset, I left home for a walk. A coworker, the man I wanted an open relationship with, called and invited me to his house. Frustrated, I decided to go along with it. So I asked him to pick me up, and we went back to his house, had drinks, and watched TV. Feeling frisky, I made a move, but it was disappointing. He ignored me, went back to the TV, and after an hour, he started straddling me. I went along with it, but the closeness was terrible. He refused to go down on me, citing a sore tongue from eating Pringles, so we went straight to bed, which was awkward. He forgot to pull out. Afterward, he went back to watching TV, and I went home. Reflecting on the walk back, I realized I just wanted excitement to escape routine. The reality of closeness outside my marriage didn't live up to expectations. My husband, with his experience, is far better. I was harsh in my last post, criticizing his size, but thinking it over, he's around 7 inches, not that small. I let a fantasy take over. When I got home, my husband was in the kitchen, unresponsive. He cooked pasta, didn't share, and went to sleep in the living room after tossing a towel at me. I fell back asleep after finding a rug. I tried talking to him on the couch, but he ignored me. I woke up early due to the cold since the heater in my room was off. This gave me more time to think, and I realized I messed up and need to be a better wife. I attempted to talk to my husband all day, but he remained unresponsive. When I made a move on him, he rejected me and left the room, something he had never done before. Even when tired, he'd at least go down on me. But today he seemed disinterested in everything. I hadn't noticed him eating or drinking anything all day. He just looked tired. When I tried sitting him down to talk, he got up and left the house. Calling him went to voicemail, so I texted him expressing my love and the need to talk for the sake of our marriage. He replied that he no longer wants a conversation or a marriage with me, planning to stay elsewhere until the new year. Upon his return, he expects me to be gone. He claimed ownership of the house, contacted a lawyer, and wants communication through her, not using his old number. I found out he's staying at my sister's house, and I'm worried she might make a move, as she's attractive and single. I texted her, but she said she loves me, but won't support me after what I did, suggesting we shouldn't talk for a while. I feel betrayed. I love my sister, but hate her for what she's doing. I hope my husband doesn't let her have her way. It's been a long day and I don't know what to feel or do. I just want things to be normal again. Sorry for the essay, I needed to vent. I messed up, but I never thought it would get this bad.